Number 4. A technical meeting tomorrow morning with the guys. Technical meeting.
Let's see.
Good evening, everyone. We'll begin in just a moment.
Yeah. You can just put the 3 of us on there. You don't have to put Eddie on there. We don't want to look like we got too many here.
Okay, Mayor. You're
Just
live,
put
you're
Dennis
recording.
forward.
I see all 8 of your council members. So
I put my
turn the
picture
meeting over
on.
to you. I'm going to mute everybody though.
You want to mute your volume.
It is.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. If we could begin tonight, as we do with all of our council meetings, with a moment of silence, and then I would ask Mr. Stone if he would lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Todd. That's a little awkward to do via Zoom, but we appreciate you doing that. Council will note that we have a number of guests on the screen with us tonight. These folks are probably, there may be a couple of public comments, but probably most of the folks on your screen will be here for one of the items later in the agenda. So just to explain that additional presence tonight. Tracy, if you have your electronic roll call down, I'll move forward with an approval of the minutes of our last regularly scheduled meeting.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Connie.
Second.
Thank you, Willem. Motion's been made and seconded. If there are no corrections, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Are there any opposed? Minutes are approved. Each council member should have also received a copy of our latest check register. If you could please indicate if you received that check register. Thank you. Let's see, under public comments, I know we have Miss Laurie Saunders with us tonight. I see Laurie is parked in a very cold, dark vehicle. But Laurie, we're going to talk about Christmas activities. Well, take yourself off mute and then talk to us.
Hey, how's that?
Good.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I've not done Zoom on my phone before, so this is new. So it's hard to believe that we are already getting ready for the Christmas holidays. So this year we have a theme of a Kentucky Christmas, and that will go along with our parade too and our window decorating contest. We're asking for permission to do the parade on Saturday, December the 4th. I have met with Sergeant Payton several times and again this morning just to discuss our route and street closures. I think all the information is attached in your all's packet. I have sent over to Tracy my certificate of insurance, and I did get a approval letter from District 7 today. So if you all have got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. It's the same route as all the years before and same time too, 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Laurie? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Connie. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you, Lori. That carries. What else do you have for us tonight?
That's really it. I'll see you at the parade on Saturday, December 4th. And for the tree lighting, wow, we have a big beauty this year for our Christmas tree. So can't wait for y'all to see it.
You do every year. We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Tracy, was there another public comment?
Yes, sir. Miss Frankie Stollard is here for a 5.5K.
Ms. Stollard, are you on?
I am. That's me.
Oh, hi there.
Hey.
Please go ahead.
We are asking for permission to close down a bit of the road. It's on the date that we want is December 5th, and we only need it for about an hour from 3:30 to 4:30. It is, the estimated attendance will be 200 people. It's very minimal what we need because it's a 0.5, which is, I don't know how many, that's almost just feet. But it's a fundraiser for an organization that we work diligently for called 50 Legs. They supply amputees with prosthetics or portions of prosthetics that insurance doesn't pay for. And my granddaughter is one of the recipients, Katie Eddington. So that's the reason for this fundraiser. We did all this fundraising in 2019. We intended to have it, and then we couldn't do it then because of COVID, couldn't do it last year because of COVID. So the money's already been raised. We have, Tracy did, Ashley from Slancha the pub, did she send you proof of liability insurance? Because it's called Kegs for Legs because Slancha is helping with it. And so we'll be using their liability insurance. That's where the 0.5K will wind up is at that's it.
Right.
We are going to have to tweak that liability insurance a little bit, but I'll talk to Matt and Ashley about it. It'll be fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Worthy cause. I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Connie.
Second.
And second, Willow. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Well, that carries, Ms. Stollard. Good luck with your event.
Perfect.
Tracy can probably help you coordinate if you have not done so yet with the police department and the public works department.
Right.
So that all this flows as smoothly as it can, both for your event and any traffic.
Perfect. You guys are all invited to come and join. It'll be a festive time.
All
And
right.
you could do it if you were on a walker.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Tracy, were there any other public comments at this time?
No, sir, that's all.
Okay. If we move on to mayor's comments, a handful of comments, not too many, because we want to get to the other items of business on our agenda. The county has engaged the Schwartz Group again. That's busy doing garbage collection and trash collection and medians and exits and along sides of roads. So I just wanted you to know if you see bags along the side of the bypass waiting to be picked up. It's funny, Public Works has been getting calls about folks reporting bags needing to be picked up, and it's because of this group that's doing the litter patrol right now. So you should see that activity not only around Georgetown, but around Scott County, and that's pretty good news. Also wanted to ask the council, I would like to propose that at our next meeting, we go back to in-person meetings at the Scott County Public Library. We will there is the space is there. Dr. Miller reported today at the chamber luncheon that the trends are moving in the correct direction in our community. As long as we can maintain those trends, I know the council wishes to meet in person, and what I would propose that our next meeting be at Scott County Public Library. We will still follow guidance at that time. Whatever the library has up, we will ask to be honored. But let's go back to seeing each other in person and do so at the next meeting when it's better for the public, and several of you have asked about this. So I thank you for your encouragement to do this. And the concerns that have been explored, so that we can take that step. So thank you. If there are any concerns about that, let me know before for the next meeting, and we'll work them out. Wanted to give you an update of where we are with the sanitation contract, with our privatization effort that the Public Works Committee has been working on. You all had approved everything to the point of asking Devin and Andrew to finalize the contract. And there's been a lot of work done in that regard. Many of the contract points have been hammered out. We've worked out all of the billing processes and the billing cost between the city and GMWSS. We kind of took some of those things for granted, but once this became a reality, we actually had to deal with those issues. So I'm pleased to report that those have been worked out. We're in the process of bringing you 2 ordinances that will be your next steps. One will be a franchise ordinance for your first reading and ultimate approval. And then we will ask you to amend our current sanitation ordinance to allow these activities to occur. In working with Republic on this contract and Robert, and what this transition will look like down at the nitty-gritty level where we have to make it work for our citizens, we're realizing that this transition will more likely occur during February and March of the coming year. To get all of this done by January the 1st is just proving to be more than can be reasonably accomplished. And we think this is such an important undertaking. We would rather get it right rather than get it in a hurry. So if you could just adjust your thinking, we hope to bring you first reading of those ordinances at our second meeting in November. So we're moving right along with the process, but we think that implementation will likely be February and March. We had previously talked about that the recycling portion might take a month or 2 to implement. This can let all that be worked out and be put in. We have agreed that our current recycling center will remain open through June 30th. So we want to give the public really ample time to get used to these transitions and not inconvenience them in that way. One of the important things that we've talked to the council about relative to privatization of solid waste is how we would handle our employees. And we made some pretty bold promises there. And we're really working hard to maintain those promises. We expected that some of these employees would be enticed by the opportunity to move to Republic as a driver, away from the city and to Republic. There's an opportunity for more hours and ultimately a higher paycheck, but we're finding some reluctance to do that. So we're working through these personnel questions. We're down to just 3 positions in question. We've worked with Robert to transition some to Public Works. We will probably have a period of time where we slightly exceed what your expected headcount for Public Works is. But Robert and I have talked through this. We think that that situation will correct itself very quickly with the turnover we experienced there and the way we lose drivers out there. But just wanted to let you all know that in order to maintain our promise to not lay workers off, I may have a little period when we have to let some attrition happen. I'll have more detail for you when we bring those ordinances back to you, but just wanted to let you know that that's one of the things that we're really having to work on. Pretty positive, but we could force people to go, but we have not yet done so. Also wanted to give the council a quick update on what steps I have taken with the discussion with the community on the gross receipts tax. I have appeared before Scott United and shown the video and had a discussion with Scott United. I'm pleased that a couple of council members were able to make that. I thank you very much for hearing that and hearing what those questions would be. I am still scheduled for the Scott Industrial Forum on November the 17th, which will be prior to our next council meeting. And I can give you some better update then on what this feedback has been. We have closed on the South Broadway house, the house down by the school. And I was able to get my hands on the keys. And over the weekend, David Lusby and I had a chance to go through a part of the house. We didn't have the keys to access the upstairs, but we've looked at the house and it needs some attention, but it's a real opportunity for us. And we've talked with some of the neighbors and obviously the neighbors are delighted. And we talked with the school system. The neighbors in the school are delighted that we are the new neighbors and we'll do a little better job of taking care of the property. And my last point is several council members have signed up for KLC's virtual homeless summit that will be going over the next couple of days. I think it starts tomorrow. So thanks to those of you participating in that. Any questions on all that? That was kind of a bunch tonight. Moving right on, under item 7 on your agenda, under city attorney, we have second reading of an amendment to the animal control ordinance.
Is there a board appointment before that?
Oh, that was at the end of my mayor comments, wasn't it? Thank you. Where would I be without these nice folks? The last item under mayor's comments was actually printed on your agenda. It's an executive order approving a board appointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission, Sharon Flint.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second, Mayor.
And I saw a couple of seconds, Tracy. I'm going to leave that to you.
Well, my computer just shut down, so I don't have a first or a second.
Oh, who made that first? Who made that motion?
I did.
Thank you, Mark. And who made that second?
Well, there were 3 of us, but
There were.
me and
Okay, it
Tom
was
and
Greg.
somebody else.
I saw Greg's hand.
Give it to Greg.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Oh, wait. Yeah. All right. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, are we now ready for second reading of the amendment to the animal control ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
An ordinance amending Chapter 6 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances related to animals. Summary. 1. Delete Section 6-21, which provides for local permits, fees, and fines related to commercial animal establishments, animal shelters, animal training, kennels, and certain other uses. 2. Amend Section 6-30 to provide for criminal enforcement of the animal-related provisions contained in Chapter 6, as opposed to enforcement through civil processes, and provides the minimum and maximum penalties for violation of each section. 3, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read the first time October 25th, 2021. Publicly read the second time November 8th, 2021.
Thank you.
I'll make
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Todd.
Second.
Thank you, Willow. Motion's been made and seconded. If there are no questions, I will ask Tracy to read the roll.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Showalter,
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames,
Yes.
Mrs. Hambrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hampton,
Yes.
Mr. Lesby,
Yes.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell,
Yes.
8-0.
8-0. Thank you. That passes. Item B under City Attorney is we have the first reading of an annexation ordinance for a piece of property on Cincinnati Road. Item C follows first reading of a zone change ordinance on Cincinnati Road. The same property. We have always taken these in this particular order, considering the annexation ordinance first, then the zone change ordinance. And then we will have another annexation request and zone change request. But first, Andrew, do we have someone from the Planning Commission here to give an overview of this application?
I think we do, but they show up as GSC Planning. So could you identify yourself?
Yes, sir. Can you see us?
Yeah.
There you are. Thank you,
Right.
Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, I was hopeful that you could, as planning staff, you could give an update to the council on this project and your all's deliberation and the staff and commission's action, and help us understand what's before the council.
Sure.
And Mayor, can I mention something real quick? I
Yes,
guess
sir.
it was appropriate time in speaking with our city attorney, Devin Golden. She has advised me that it'd be appropriate for me to recuse myself. I do have a business interest with Dennis Anderson, not on this particular piece of property, but just in general. So I'm going to mute and step out.
Okay.
Okay. Mayor, I'm here in the office with Matt Summers. He was the staff planner on that project. So I'm going to let him start the introduction and overview, and we're both here for questions.
Thank you.
Matt.
Yeah, thank you. This application was heard by the Planning Commission in September. It was an application to rezone property that is currently zoned A1 and outside city limits to an R2 PUD zoning. It's about 57 acres in size. The concept plan that was submitted by the applicant showed a mixed density residential development. That development had single family lots, it had townhomes, it had apartments, and it had senior apartments. In reviewing the concept plan, we did ask that the applicant submit a traffic study, a traffic impact study, and I believe a copy of that was provided as part of the record to you all. In looking at that, it did identify that there were or that there are some intersections and turning movements along the US 25 corridor that do operate at a level of service below a C, both today without any development on the project site and in the future if the project site was built out. Overall, it found that outside of the Colony Boulevard intersection with US 25, that the traffic impacts would be minimal. It did identify and look into a little bit closely what it would look like if a left turn lane for vehicles exiting from the Colony was added. And their traffic impact study did show that if a left turn lane was constructed there, that, you know, even if this site was fully built out, the Colony would have the same level of service that it has today. Overall, you know, we looked at the concept plan and found that, you know, if certain steps were taken, the impacts of the proposed development could be mitigated if, you know, turn lane was added on Colony Boulevard. If the site constructed the turn lanes on US 25 that the traffic impact study identified, and if there was some sort of limitation as far as the number of units built on the site until such time as additional connections could be made, that the impacts on the transportation network could be mitigated to a reasonable level. We also looked at the, you know, it's KRS 100.213 instructs us. We looked at whether or not the zone change was supported by the comprehensive plan, and we kind of go through that extensively in the staff report. Ultimately, we realized that it was supported by the comprehensive plan, and the Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously.
Matt, I'm Tammy Mitchell. You said you recommended it unanimously, but were there conditions?
Yes, the conditions, I believe that you all should have also gotten a copy of the signed conditions of approval. There were 5 of them. I can go over those if you would like.
That's okay. I would just ask the conditions, if they are met, does it automatically get approved, or once those are met, does it come back to planning and then come back to the city council?
Yeah. So with a development, typically the only time that city council would see the development is when the zone change comes before you all. Outside of that, the development or the developers would generally follow the ordinances that have already been adopted by the city, as long as they follow those guidelines. Sort of their approval on development moves forward just with review at the Planning Commission level.
Tammy, your question is relevant, and it's one that council seems to struggle with every time we have one of these issues before us, is that the city council in this process only has one opportunity to vote up or down on the zone change. The annexation of the zone change is kind of connected here. But once you exercise that very powerful right of the city council, then the process moves on without council input. And there are significant steps after that that you do not have control over. Council's expressed for years that they chafe under that. And we've had this conversation every time. But yes, you're exactly right. What you have before you tonight, well, tonight's only first reading, and we don't vote on first readings, but what will be before you at the second reading is just a yes/no vote, which is sometimes doesn't feel very satisfying to you as a council member.
Mayor, if I could,
Yes, sir, Todd.
I do have a question. Is it normal for the planning commission to, and before, let me preface this, because being a retired police officer, I've been out there and worked traffic and worked wrecks at Cardone and down at Bywater. But is it normal for you all to, within 1/8 of a mile, a blind curve and a blind hill, to approve 600 units?
I mean, the entrance location will have to be approved by the transportation cabinet. If this was a county road or a city road, we would have more say over the entrance location.
But I mean, is it, and I know that that piece of property is a short span, but there's been a lot of wrecks out there over the years, and non-injury, major injury, and fatalities. And I don't see this being because the colony has been turned down several times to get a traffic light to get out of there. I don't see this one being any better. And I don't want to see someone set up and have someone get hurt based upon bad positioning of an entrance. And that's the only place to get an entrance is right there on 25. There's no other place for a egress out of that property.
Hey, Matt, do you mind if I chime in on some of your conditions? You know, Tammy asked about the conditions, and, you know, it's hard to weed through a 630-page packet, but one of those important conditions that the Planning Commission set was that the application listed 600 units. And they, you know, Matt mentioned this, but I kind of did want to reiterate that this conditional recommendation of the zone change is based on 150 units. So they cut it back to 25% of the application. And I think, you know, the concerns you've raised are a reason for that. So I think they made it pretty clear that the Planning Commission does value safety, and they've taken that traffic study and revised the number of units to reflect what they believe to be safe for the public. So I did want to highlight that condition because I think Matt went through several things, and I wanted to make sure that was pointed out, because I think that's pretty significant. It's not your typical checkmark condition of annexation, compliance with the code. It was a pretty clear message, I think, that the Planning Commission sent based on the recommendation, and a unanimous recommendation. So I did want to highlight that.
I appreciate that, Devin, but it's still based upon the paperwork. You know, if you go by what the standard is 2.5 vehicles per resident, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 cars, just based on that. So that's a whole lot of vehicles coming in and out of there on that little stretch of road. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to Mr. Stone's question? Several questions, actually.
Please.
Matt, I think I might have heard you. Please correct me if I misunderstood. So the state will, if this ultimately passes, the state will then decide where that entrance is going to be on that property. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I'm assuming right now that entrance is going to be somewhere between it's a really small area.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming somewhere between Cardome and the Brown property.
Yes. Yeah.
So-
It'll be between the driveway that exists now for the Singer property and the Brown property.
Okay, but Devin mentioned that obviously the development has been scaled back, but isn't that only because there's only one entrance at this point?
Yes.
So ultimately, if this developer or development gets a second entrance, then it's going to jump up to the 600 units, correct?
Yes.
But so would that second entrance, ultimately, if there's access to a second entrance, is it also going to be on 25, coming in and out of 25? Or do we know that yet?
That's a good question. I mean, I think given some of the constraints in the area between the creek and, you know, the lack of a connection out of the back of the colony, things like that, I think ultimately, yes, it is likely that, you know, whatever second connection they're able to make will likely lead ultimately to US 25.
Okay. So at this point then, so between, let's just say hypothetically between Cardome and the Brown property, if this moves forward, what road improvements are going to be made on 25? As far as, you know, a turn lane added, what road improvements are going to be, do we know that yet?
Yeah, so their traffic study identified that they would need a right turn lane for southbound traffic to enter the neighborhood, and they would also need a left turn lane for northbound traffic. So they would widen the road to add turn lanes so that vehicles entering the neighborhood could sort of get out of the higher speed traffic, get out of the way a little bit.
And okay, all right, I better not say anymore. Okay.
So the turn lanes are on US 25.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. So under conditions on number 4, it says the planning commission shall not approve more than 150 dwelling units to be constructed until the development has at least 2 connections to off-site public roads. And those 2 connections, one is already existing. Is that correct?
Well, one is the main entrance that's shown on the concept plan. It does, I mean, it's not been built at this point, but one is that connection that they're showing on the concept plan to US 25.
Colony Boulevard is one, right?
No, not for this one, because they're not proposing, at least at this time, they're not proposing any connections to the colony.
So this property is going to have 2 separate entrances and exits.
So as it's shown now, it has one entrance and exit on Colony Boulevard that they'll have control over. What this condition would do is require them to have a second connection of some kind to a public road offsite. So that could be something like if the Brown property was to develop in the future, they could connect to a public road on the Brown property, which would in theory have its own connection to 25 and or to the colony. They could connect on the backside potentially to the colony, and then they would have access to a public road, and the colony would have a second way in and out. We don't know yet what that connection would be, but in addition to the one they're showing on the concept plan, they would need one more connection.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
And I do have one more question. What about our sewer capacity? Has that been put into this as well?
My understanding, and the applicant could probably speak to this a little more, but my understanding is that they have applied for availability.
Chase, can you answer that for me, please?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to turn on. I figured that might be a question that came up and related to this project. Anderson Communities has submitted an availability request for water and sanitary sewer service. It was approved by the Board of Commissioners, and I don't have that date in front of me. I apologize, but that was good for 12 months, and they came back and asked for a 6-month extension, and that 6-month extension was approved. And so they're in that 6-month extension period where they are approved for water and sanitary sewer. That's within our current allocation. That we're still good on capacity. That's factored into our total capacity at the current time.
Okay, thank you. And Matt, do you have a timeline for the development of this property and when the first house would be constructed? What's the process? What's the timeline?
I don't have a timeline. They have not submitted any development plans or subdivision plats at this time. So the timeline is really sort of up to them. You know, if they start with single family lots, it would be the same time frame as most other neighborhoods. They would come before the planning commission for a preliminary approval. They would then need to construct any roads and install utilities before they could plat and sell lots or build homes. If they start more with the multifamily, they would go through the preliminary review with the planning commission, and then after that, they would get construction plans approved, and they could start installing utility and infrastructure in the buildings all sort of in one chunk.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Tackett, if I could add one thing, I'm sorry. Just to make it even more clear on sewer capacity, the current application is factored into the existing plant's capacity. We do not need the plant expansion online to accept flow from this development. I don't know if that clears that up any, but that's within our current remaining capacity at the existing plant.
Yes, I got that. Thank you, Chase.
Thank you.
Chase, is that included for the 150 units or for the full 600?
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it is for the full 600.
Are there other questions from council members? I think we have representatives from the proposed developer on with us, and I'm sure they would like the opportunity to speak with the council. And they're probably equipped to answer some of the questions in addition to what Matt's been able to tell you. So is someone here from the development, representing the development?
There we go. This is Dennis Anderson. I've got Dick Murphy here. He's paid to talk, so I'm gonna let him talk. Okay. Well, thanks a lot. I'm Dick Murphy. I'm the attorney for Anderson Communities, and want to clarify that our total units are getting my notes out here. It's 571 ultimately that'll be built out on this. The Planning Commission had extensive discussions of this and approved. We're proud to say approved us unanimously. We do agree with the comprehensive plan, and you heard the conditions that were placed on us to deal with some of the issues you mentioned. We had a extensive traffic study performed by Integrated Engineering, which is a subsidiary of Prime Engineering now here, and did a very careful traffic study of this that indicated that our intersection, excuse me, our intersection would continue to function at a level of service C on this, and that indicated that the Colony subdivision entrance would continue to operate at a level of service C if an additional left turn lane was provided on the Colony intersection. As Mr. Summers mentioned, Mr. Anderson agreed to construct turn lanes on US 25, both left turn lanes and right turn lanes. We will be coming back to the Planning Commission. I know there was discussion about not coming back to the City Council, and of course that's inherent in all zoning issues, but the Planning Commission will be seeing our plans many times in the future. We can't even turn a spade of earth on this property until we come back with the Planning Commission with our final development plan. This will be in phases. It'll probably start at the single family residential and proceed to the back. I don't know the exact timetable on this. We're waiting for your all's approval really before we can devise plans for the property. But we're real proud of what we have here. The interesting thing about traffic here is with this mix of units, we don't have near the traffic generation that this number of units would generate if it were all single family homes. As you all probably know, single family homes are the largest generators of traffic on a per unit basis. It goes single family are the biggest, then townhomes generate less, apartments generate a little less than townhomes. Then the smallest generator will be our senior housing, which is an extremely low generator of trips. And with the good thing about the mix of housing units is that they mix the time of day when all the units come out. Seniors aren't going to be coming out at 8 a.m. and coming back at 5 p.m. They're going to be coming out at different times. And that's sort of the same way with the units we have here. Do want to emphasize too the planned nature of this. We have green space, we have walking trails, we have a bird watching area here, we have dog park, we have a people park on this one. And so it's a concept which Mr. Anderson has used in a number of other areas, in Townley Center here in Lexington and in Emerson. He's, as you all know, he's developed up there, so he has a track record which you can see how he goes. So hopefully that answers some of your all questions. We do have our traffic consultant here with us as well, along with our landscape architect. Traffic consultant is Eddie Mesta. Our landscape architect is Tony Barrett. If you all have any questions, and see if Dennis wanted to add anything to that. I just wanted to say that the entrance does have to meet all the state highway standards. We've been over there and met with them. We've actually designed it with turn lanes on 25, left and right, and then turn lanes coming out of the new community. The left turn lane is very important there, and we've got it designed that way. The state highway department will allow us one entrance and one entrance only onto 25. And I think it's pretty much approved. We've been working with them quite some time. We've put more energy and more thought and done more pre-zoning work on this development than anyone I've ever done. There's lots of challenges, and we've studied them all and feel very comfortable with this.
Mr. Anderson, I have a question, and I just wanted to ask if on the 150 homes that are going to be originally done first, are they all going to be single family, and then the breakdown will be after that? I
don't know. Right now, I'm real pleased with the performance of townhomes. I really see this as the post-COVID product. We've got a real big, large amenity package on this. It takes a certain amount of density to support that. We've got a clubhouse, 24-hour fitness, swimming pool, and all the other amenities that Dick mentioned. This is a mixed generational lifestyle community. And this is where we've been moving, and we're getting a little bit better at this all the time. We're adding more amenities, and the public's really accepting this. This is a product they want. This is a product they're willing to pay for.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Murphy, I appreciate your responses to some of those questions from the council, and it's always good to hear from the developer as well, particularly one that's got a good track record in Georgetown. Are there other questions of the council at this time? Of course, tonight is not a night that we vote, but it is a great chance to get a lot of your questions answered. The record is extensive, and you'll have ample time between your questions tonight and what you've heard tonight and the time that you vote to really go through some of that record and look at the expert opinions that have been given.
Thank you for that. I appreciate you answering the questions. I've asked one more question if I could. Did I hear you say that the state or the government would only allow one entrance onto US 25?
From the Singer property, the state will allow one entrance and only one entrance.
So in order to move to this, if you were to alter any of the conditions, it would mean that there was an somewhere else, because that's a condition. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, If the council is ready, I'm happy to have the clerk do first reading of the ordinance. Tracy?
Yes, sir. An ordinance annexing into the city of Georgetown certain real property containing approximately 58.29 plus or minus acres located at or around 822 Cincinnati Road in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary. 1. Annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owner in accordance with KRS 81A.412, approximately 58.29 plus or minus acres of property located at 822 Cincinnati Road in Scott County, Kentucky. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent law, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. Publicly introduced and read for the first time November 8th, 2021.
Thank you. That'll constitute first reading of the annexation ordinance for Cincinnati Road. At our next meeting, which will be November 22nd, we would anticipate second reading and roll call vote. Then, Tracy, we may as well go ahead and have first reading of the zone change ordinance. Please.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing a total of approximately 58.29 plus or minus acres located at 822 Cincinnati Road in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 to R2 PUD. Summary. 1. Rezones approximately 58.29 plus or minus acres located at 822 Cincinnati Road in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 agricultural to R2 PUD. 2. Provides for repeal and inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. Publicly introduced and read for the first time November 8th, 2021.
Thanks, Tracy. As before, first reading, and we'll anticipate second reading at our next meeting. Would like to thank everyone that was on the call for that particular issue. I know all these applicants that are on, it is an expensive proposition to come to a council meeting with a lot of experts and then wait for a long time. So we appreciate everyone's patience. Item D on the agenda is first reading of an annexation ordinance for Delissa Drive. Can we go back to our original format, Joe or Matt, and you give the council an overview of this request?
Sure, and I'll take the lead on this one. So this is a zone change request for a property that's between Canewood and White Oak in the North Elkhorn Creek on 460 west of town. So this is a zone change request again to R2 PUD, but also C1 conservation. So they're asking to rezone all the floodplain to conservation C1. So this is for a senior community. It's a little bit different. So they're proposing private streets, an HOA or owners association that'll maintain all the area outside the units themselves. They're proposing 112 dwelling units in 56 duplex buildings, ranged on the site, either single loaded streets or double loaded streets. They have a lot of amenities proposed. So they have a clubhouse at the entrance off Delissa. They have an amphitheater. They have a community garden area and some ball courts, and then an 8-foot paved path between the clubhouse entrance along the kind of the main road over to the community gardens, kind of connecting all the amenities. So again, we look at KRS 100.213 and look at, does it conform with the comprehensive plan and our goals and objectives in our comprehensive plan? It does conform with the future land use map. So it's in conformance. Future land use map calls for urban residential for the developable areas, and it calls for rezoning all the floodplain in town to C1 conservation. So it's doing that for both both pieces of the property. We have a bunch of goals and objectives related to housing, senior housing, conservation of floodplain areas and steep slopes and environmentally sensitive areas. It's proposing to not build in any of the floodplain areas, but just have a few of the amenity, the amphitheater, and I think some of the end cul-de-sac turnaround is going to be a little bit in the floodplain. So we are recommending, Planning Commission staff recommended approval, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval on the zone change for, I think it's 32.135 acres R2 PUD, and that will be subject to the concept plan, which shows 112 dwelling units in 56 buildings. They are kind of higher end duplex units. I think in the report or in the packet that we sent, I think there is a floor plan and some building elevations. I think the unusual thing is that there's private streets, and they are planning on gating both entrances. So there's an entrance at DeLissa Drive at the main 460 entrance, and there's an entrance, a secondary entrance from Canewood on Belvoir Drive, and they are proposing to gate those, but they will have controlled access for garbage trucks and other, utility vehicles. One of the things that we require, this didn't meet the threshold for a traffic study, but they did provide a traffic summary and a traffic report. It did show that the main entrance meets all our level of service requirements. There isn't, I guess the only deficient access point is at Paynes Depot northbound where it hits 460. The left turn there is functioning at a level of service D, but that isn't directly related to this development. But they are required to widen DeLissa Drive, since that's their access to a public street, their main entrance. They will have to widen that to city standards. We will look at that when they submit the preliminary development plan. We will look at that widening, because I know there's a historic stone fence there. It may make more sense to add a turn lane, like a left turn lane, or make safety improvements rather than widening it and having to tear out that stone fence. So Planning Commission will look at that, but they will be required to dedicate right of way and make improvements to DeLissa. I think other issues that came up in the packet that we forwarded, or in the public record, we did have a petition from Canewood opposing the application. And there were a number of members there from Canewood subdivision and White Oak to hear the application. So you can look through the record at that. And I guess we are recommending approval with, we did have conditions, and one of the conditions is that they follow the concept plan, because it is zoned R2, or would be zoned R2. That allows up to 12 units an acre in R2. So wanted to make sure that they, if they were to amend their plan at all, that it be limited to the 112 maximum units. And that is about 3.48 dwelling units an acre, which is a lower density than Canewood and White Oak adjoining. So it is a little bit lower density, even though it's attached duplex units. And I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions on this one?
Yes, I do. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Joe, just out of curiosity, what were you said that White Oak was in opposition to it? I'm just curious, what was, the sentiment from White Oak?
I think generally we didn't get a lot of opposition out of White Oak once they saw the type of unit they were building and the density. I think it was mostly from cane wood.
Okay. It's a beautiful piece of property. I'm familiar with it. And quite honestly, they've got an opportunity to do something really special in that area with the creek. At one time, we were requesting access easements, for walking trails. Are those in place with this piece of property? And if not, would they be willing to grant that type of easement for a walking trail?
Yeah, they aren't in place, but we haven't looked at the preliminary subdivision plat yet. We would ask for tree protection and those easements. So, we can ask them now. There were some concerns at White Oak about Delissa Drive. So I think that was those that stated, concerns. I think at White Oak, it would be Delissa Drive. I think we had a few.
Is Delissa Drive the one that comes right off of 460, kind of makes the left-hand turn? Yeah, I get it. Obviously, it's not even close to being adequate for a public street, but I can see that it would be. Are there any improvements proposed there?
They would have to bring it up to city standards from the center line. So only along their frontage from center line over. Yeah. There's some potholes and things there, but it might make more sense to put in improvements along instead of widening it, maybe just resurfacing, putting in a turn lane might make more sense, but we'll have to look at that.
Mr. Sims, could you address the easement question along the creek?
You're muted.
You're muted. Harold, you're muted.
There, is that better?
There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, Harold Sims, proud to represent the Regal Springs Development Group, and we do, as part of this application, we have rezoned or sought the rezoning on all of the property that is basically lies within the floodplain to a conservation zone. That would allow the construction of an easement in that area. But I think that obviously the conservation zone has some limitations on what you can do in what they call the floodway and versus the floodplain. And there is, I think there's certain controls on what you can take down. I'll let Mr. Delaval, who is the principal for Regal Springs, talk about the actual granting of an easement. But I think that as long as we abide by the conservation rules, there is space there to do it.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity. We are interested in making this something that is very proud to be in Georgetown. We think it's the right place. And we're very welcome to work with your staff and our people to make it right. We want a really good experience on this property. It's a beautiful piece of property. And we want our seniors to live in that environment, to bring their grandkids to come on down and enjoy the nature and the beat and what we've got. We'd also like to work with the citizens of Georgetown also. How that will look like and what it would be, I don't know tonight, but I hope that we could work towards something that would be beneficial to both parties in getting this set up.
I know in the conversations with the developer and his team, access trails for the residents of the development have certainly always been planned. In fact, they have sidewalks on both sides of the streets to accommodate the pedestrian traffic in the area. And I know that one of those sides, at least on the development from the clubhouse back towards the garden area, is an 8-foot sidewalk. And I know that they anticipate pedestrian traffic in that area to be a major feature of their development. How that will look as it gets down along the creek, whether it takes the form of joining a community walking trail, or is it a trail that you have to get access to to be able to use. All those things are things that we would work out with the planning staff in the development stages.
And also, and Joe will probably know this, we own the strip of land that connects that parcel of land with next door with Kingwood, and we certainly would make that available to part of the master plan with the city, and we need to do so. We're new at this. We don't have all the answers tonight, but your staff at the planning staff has been great to work with, and we would like to go towards the goal of making a great development and something you all would be very proud to have in your town.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, quick question. Is it going to be a conservation zoning? Is that what's being requested for a piece of it? And how common is that?
It's more common since we have it in our comprehensive plan that anytime we get a rezoning with any floodplain or environmentally sensitive areas that we asked for the rezoning to conservation. It doesn't allow any residential construction in the conservation zone, but it does allow some, agricultural type uses, open space. I can't remember the name. It's slipping me the name of the other senior community that we approved that was built on the bypass. Ashland. Yeah, we rezoned the back of that conservation as well in the green belt.
Yeah, and they've done an excellent job as well. At one time, the only reason I mention this is at one time there was a big push for these easements, for these walking trails, and there are 3 schools, just in a very close proximity to this property. So I understand that certainly there'd be private walking trails, but I'm just wondering about public and access to the school. I believe Western, if I'm not mistaken, has some of those trails going back to Elkhorn Creek. So anyway, let you all do your job. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Joe or Mr. Sims?
Can I ask about sewer capacity?
Yes, ma'am.
Has that been applied for too as well, Joe? Chase?
Yes, Chase.
This development, they have submitted an application, and it's one of the developments that is currently on the wait list for both water and sanitary sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, is there any kind of buffer plan between this development and Canewood that backs up to Amen Corner and Shinnecock?
Yeah, they're actually not required under our ordinances to have a buffer because we don't require it between similarly zoned property. If it's duplex or below duplex or single family, but they are proposing a wooden plank fence with a diamond mesh, and a buffer of trees. I think a tree every 30 feet. So they are providing a buffer. We'll look at that with the preliminary submittal. They are going above and beyond, but they are building the units. There's a 25-foot setback between in R2, the rear setback. So they are going to be close to those backyards. So we are asking them to provide a buffer, and they are. So we'll have to work through the details. But right now it's a plank fence and a tree every 30 feet, I believe.
Thanks, Joe.
Mayor, I have a couple of questions for you and at least one question for Joe.
Yes, sir.
I'll just go ahead with Joe first. Joe, you mentioned earlier, Joe, that this development, if it passes, will have a second entrance. Did I hear you say that it would be gated? Now, is that gated for first responders and garbage, or is that gated for the people that live in the development?
I can answer that question. It's gated for the residents' security, but all of the fire equipment, everybody has a mechanism for frequency. It opens any gate, any lock gate, and this gate anytime. And the trash people would have the same thing. So we would make sure they have that be done. It's on a frequency system. That's what it's used for.
So would both? I'm sorry, I apologize. Would both entrances be gated?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, just one or two questions for you. I know we've talked extensively over the last at least 3, 4, maybe 5 years and we're not even looking at stormwater. I'm just looking at, we've talked about streetlights in developments all over this community, or the lack of, for many years now. And I've been on DeLissa Drive 3 times, twice a day, and then once on Saturday evening after it was dark. And there's about a 300-yard section, maybe 200 yards from 4th to one of the entrances that I guess will exist. It's dark. And that street's covered with trees. And not only do we need to make, improvement, if this passes, improvements need to be made to that street, but also for the safety of those coming in and out of that development. Either the developer or the city, or somebody's going to have to step up. And I don't mean to be blunt, I'm sorry, but I think it's a concern.
Yeah.
Joe, if we could respond to that.
If I could respond to that, first of all, I totally agree with you. I don't know how some of the people have gotten in there currently under that circumstance. And not only are we going to provide streetlights, decorative streetlights, we would hope that would put enough luminance for our residents, but we clearly would agree that we would put substantial lighting on there for the public safety of the community and for our seniors to get in and out. It's very hazardous as it drives right now. So that's definitely in our scheme, and our entrance will have a lot of lighting, a lot of luminance as they come into our private gated area. That'll all be lit up pretty nicely and decoratively, but there'll be enough lumens for safety to make sure it's good, safe, and bright. Totally agree.
And Mark, those kind of details would be able to be fleshed out when we submit our preliminary development plans. Joe and his staff can pay particular attention to the issue of lighting to make sure that the areas of concern for you and that evidently Mr. Del Valle have noted at night are addressed, not only on site, but as it leads up to the entrance to our property.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor, this is a prime example. If this moves forward, trying to be proactive on the front side instead of being reactive on the back side. And and again, I know you know that. I'm not just putting my opinion out there.
And Harold, so you and your client will understand, the council and Mark specifically has pointed out repeatedly, we've got some real dark areas in town that aren't adequately lit up with streetlights. And there's some pretty lonesome places. So when we see one, we'll draw attention to it, and we're going to try and fix some of them. So I think your client's willingness is encouraging. We probably have some work to do of our own. So thank you, Mark.
More questions for you as well. I know we're looking at 2 first readings tonight, which means that we're going to be voting on 2 items at our next meeting. And I know most of us, if not all of us, are thinking in the back of our minds, are if both of these developments do pass at the next meeting, from an infrastructure standpoint with garbage, obviously garbage might not be the case moving forward, but public works, fire, and police are, what does this do? Are we able to continue to provide the services that we're providing now, or is that something we're going to have to continue to look at if one or both of these developments passes at our next meeting?
Yeah, it is always on our mind, Mark, with everything that we approve. Part of the development process includes a technical review committee. These folks have to go before all of our professionals and all of our department heads to talk about our ability to provide services for the development. And every development has to go through that gauntlet of that committee, and police are represented and fire are represented. So those questions have been asked, or it wouldn't have gotten this far. We know that what happens is we're building incremental pressure that will eventually require more police and fire. And that's our job as policymakers to recognize that. But for these developments, those questions have been asked and answered, or they couldn't get this far.
Mayor, do you mind if I add just a little bit to that?
Yeah, if I'm wrong, really correct me.
No, I think you're making great points. I want to clarify some of the wording. The council is not being asked to approve a development. It is simply a yay or nay on the zone change recommended. These developments are in their preliminary phases. They haven't even submitted a preliminary development plan to the Planning Commission. So we're voting on a zone change that is proposed based on a conceptual plan. So I think all the questions are totally appropriate. I think it was great. We had everybody here on the call, both council and developer representatives, to answer those questions. But the council, this is not at the development plan phase. It's simply at the zone change phase, which requires that council approve the Planning Commission recommendation unless there is a clear finding that it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
That's what I meant to say, Devin. Thank you.
And then to follow up on that, Devin, they have met all the criteria in the comprehensive plan for both of these developments. Is that correct?
That is what the Planning Commission record has indicated. Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Mayor, if I could, Harold.
I could follow up on that just quickly while it's in the thought process. Devin brought up the good point that what you're looked at as a concept plan, which would give somebody the word concept is a little wide open. Planning staff they put a condition on our approval that if we tried, we can't just get a change to R2 PUD under a concept plan and then come back in with something else. They're holding our feet to the fire on the 112. We can't come in and say, oh, we'd really like to do 185. They put so not only that it is a concept plan that it is accompanying the zone change tonight, but it's in our case, the approval from the Planning Commission says 112 and no more.
Thank you, Doc.
Mayor, if I could ask Doc and his client question.
Sure.
Is both entrances going to be open to where sanitation and police and fire can get into? Because I know the east entrance, there will have to be a lot of tree trimming and widening because some of those fire trucks will have a tough time getting through there. I just want to didn't know if y'all had thought that far ahead or not.
In terms of the access with the gate, that's a matter of the technology on the gating process. I think they will work. The city trucks, the emergency vehicles, and the utility vehicles will work off of a frequency. In terms of what needs to be done to make sure that they have access, I think that's a matter that as the mayor mentioned, that they come to the TRC meetings if they need some limbs trimmed in order to get a ladder truck in, then that they can let us know at the TRC, and we'll address it as we go through the process.
Okay, I appreciate it, Doc. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? The other thing, and Devin's keeping us very carefully in line. The council and the fiscal court entrust planning and zoning to be our hearing body. They go through a lot of hours of testimony, serving as the hearing body for the court and the council. And they create this public record that is then brought to you, and you use it in your consideration of your decision. One of your options is always on a zone change is not to accept that record and decide to create your own, have your own hearings. Well, we say only do that if you find a record incomplete. And in this case, the record's very complete, and it makes our job. The decision is not easier, but the access to the information that you need for the decision, the Planning and Zoning Commission has done that work for us. So if we're ready at this point, shall we have first reading of the annexation ordinance, Tracy?
Yes, sir. An ordinance annexing into the city of Georgetown certain real property containing approximately 54.86 plus or minus acres located at around 94, 96, and 98 DeLissa Drive in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary. Annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owner in accordance with KRS 81A.412, approximately 54.86 plus or minus acres of property located at 94, 96, and 98 DeLissa Drive. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent law, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time November 8th, 2021.
Thank you. That will be our first reading. And assume it's appropriate then to move right into first reading of the zone change ordinance.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing a total of approximately 54.004 plus or minus acres located at or around 94, 96, and 98 DeLissa Drive in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 to R2 PUD for 32.135 acres and C1 for 21.869 acres. Summary. Rezones approximately 54.004 plus or minus acres located at 94, 96, and 98 DeLissa Drive in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 agricultural to R2 PUD for 32.135 acres and C1 for 21.869 acres. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. And publicly introduced and read for the first time November 8th, 2021.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Sims will undertake second reading of those ordinances at our November 22nd meeting.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for being with us.
Appreciate it.
Item 8, before we get to item 8 on the agenda, since it has to do with city engineer, let me backtrack on a city engineer related mayor's comment that I needed to make earlier. Several council members have helped us look at a problem out in Derby Estates, and just wanted to let the council know that we're able to use our unit price contract and address this problem internally in the way that the council members discussed, and I don't think it requires any further council action. If you have any questions, give me a call, but I think we can address the situation, the solution that you all discussed. Moving back to the agenda now. Item 8 under city engineers, a municipal order approving a contract for our West Main Street TAP, Traffic Alternatives Program grant. This is the one that we've been working on for several years, that we've been delayed in conversations with the Heritage Commission on the condition of the viaduct and its historical value and the need to make repairs there. And we've finally gotten the extra money and we're awarding the contract. They'll begin work pretty quickly working on the dry stack wall and then move to more visible parts of it. So is there a
Mayor, before we get to the voting. I do want to note this is a conditional approval. We've received notification that we'll be granted the funding, but we do not have that amended contract with the transportation cabinet in hand yet. So we'll obviously have that, I anticipate, later this week, but wanted to get that conditional approval to go ahead and sign that contract with the winning bidder.
Okay, I'll make the motion with the condition.
That's really important. Thank you, Devin. Motion's been made, Connie, and second, Greg. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
Hey, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if everything goes as planned, do we have a time frame, an estimated time frame on that entire project? How long it might take?
We think by springtime, it should look very different. They're going to start on the dry stack wall now. Hopefully after the first of the year, they can start on the road improvements. But by springtime, early summer, it should be a finished project and look really nice. Let's see, item 9 under dispatch, we have a municipal order for a server upgrade. And just to quickly update you, Lieutenant Moore is on the call with us, but we have had this was not budgeted, but you go to making changes and one license is out of date and then it requires a server to do that. And this is something we have to have for dispatch. And it's about a $16,000 cost that was not budgeted.
Welcome to technology.
Welcome. That's right.
I've been there, seen it happen, so I make the motion to accept it.
Thank you, Todd.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Willow. If there are no questions there, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thanks. Stacy is ready this meeting with our quarterly financial report.
Good evening.
There she is.
Let me see if I have, yes, I've got capability. Here we go. Sharing my screen. Hopefully you all can see that spreadsheet okay. Let me know if you cannot. I have a very large monitor, so it's hard for me to see what you're seeing. But what I've pulled up is our quarterly financial report with revenues. Again, if anyone's having trouble seeing, just let me know. I will zoom in a little so it's easier to read. Okay, there we go. So starting out with our payroll taxes, you can see collections for fiscal year 2021. Those were our final collections for last year, 14.6 million. Our original budget, I know COVID budget was 9 point something. We adjusted that. We ended up with about a 12.5 million budget. So we did exceed that quite a bit. And as you can see in those last few months of fiscal year 2021, wages picked up quite a bit. And looking in the first quarter of this year, you can see we're fairly on track with where we typically are for July and August. You can see here we're about 300,000 ahead of where we were at this time last year. And September, we are missing our Toyota payment for September 2021. So they got a new payroll provider who's a little bit behind on the returns. So once I have that information, I can update this and resend it out to everybody. But it's kind of hard to compare September of this year to last year at this moment. And as shown below, we continue on right now with our 120,000 per month for a total of 1.2 million per year on the incentive payments is the year that we're in right now. If there are no questions about payroll taxes, I will go on to net profits. And again, I'll make this a little bit bigger. Hopefully everybody can see it okay. For net profits, as you can see, this has been updated since I've booked receivables as I prepare for the audit, and the Revenue Commission has given me their number. We talk about this every year, The very last month of the year always shows as negative. And that is because at the end of the year, we see how many people we owe money, how many people are carrying a credit on their tax return and have not asked for a refund. At any point, I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that any of these individuals could ask for a refund of this amount on their next return at the very least. And for June 30, 2021, there was 1,370,625 of overpayments or credits towards net profits. And that's compared to about 1,224,000 at the end of last year. So unfortunately, those credits have piled up just a little bit more than last year. And that's why I have highlighted the month of July, because what we do every year is kind of kick the can down the road. We back those credits off of the most recent fiscal year. It reduces the revenue for that fiscal year. And then we push the revenue off to the current fiscal year in hopes that when those returns get filed, we will start to earn some of that money back. But as you can see, we've been carrying a rather large credit since fiscal year 18, and it has not gone away yet. So we just keep pushing it off.
So that means that for some of those situations, there has to be a net profit earned great enough to retire the credit to get us down to a zero balance before we ever receive a net profits payment.
Correct. Essentially, we've received the cash at some point. They probably made estimated payments higher than what their tax due was, which was why, like I said, they could choose to have us write a check back to them at some point. So they have been giving us the cash, but for accounting purposes, we keep kind of deferring that revenue till the next year because we haven't earned it yet, is how that works. So
and the county,
so our bottom line.
County has the same situation.
Yes, absolutely. Pretty much for every credit we have, they would have the same credit since they collect within city limits. So the bottom line for fiscal year 21 was $2 million. In a typical year, we budget 1.5. So we actually did end up with a little higher revenue. Some of that could have been from delayed returns. People could have filed their returns late due to COVID for the previous year. So we'll see how that affects the bottom line this year as we go forward. So obviously the current year number looks a little inflated because you've got 1,370,000 of unearned credits in there. But you can see here in September, we actually collected quite a bit of net profits returns. So hopefully things with net profits for the majority of our businesses are starting to be stable, back on track. And hopefully at some point we can quit carrying these credits over, but I'm not sure. Insurance premium tax, I'm going to move on to that one next. Obviously, July 1 was and July to September was our first quarter for collecting at our new rate of 8%. So you can see that through November collections, of course, November collections are still for the July to September quarter. They just come in kind of on the last day of October, first day of November. We are 772,000 ahead of where we were at this time last year. So we have two things at play here. One is, of course, the increased rate. The second is, as you can see by looking at line 20, this revenue category has been steadily increasing the last several years anyway. So you can see we budgeted $5,760,000. And after the first quarter, we've collected 27% of our budget. So we're pretty close to on target with what we budgeted, just a tiny bit over. So insurance premium taxes are looking good. Property taxes, you can see collections. We're a couple thousand ahead, but of course, the real numbers on this won't come in until the quarter ended December 31st. So we'll get a better picture of property taxes for the next quarter. Just a few late prior year's tax bills come in at the beginning of the year. And lastly, we have our alcoholic beverage regulatory fees. And these numbers also have been steadily increasing over the last few years. You can see that compared to the first quarter last year, we collected an additional 21,000, and we're at 28% of our budget after the first quarter. So a little more than a fourth of the way there. And then Tracy emailed a PDF of these reports as well as the detailed line by line expense report to you prior to the meeting, I believe. So if you have any questions about this or the detailed report, feel free to contact me. But that is all I have for tonight.
All right. Thank you, Stacy. Any questions from that report? Okay.
Thank you all.
Very good, though, Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 11 on your agenda. It's my favorite part of the meeting. It's council comments. Let's see. I'm going to start lower right-hand corner. Mark Showalter.
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Todd?
No, sir. I'm good.
Thanks. David?
Good evening, Mayor. I was told that the infrastructure bill passed in Washington. So I guess that was about $1 trillion, I believe, and 500 billion might be, I guess, towards projects that we might have some interest in. So anyway, that's pretty good news. Hopefully for us, hopefully we can get on top of it and tap into it.
Boy, that's a great catch, David. Should have mentioned that in Mayor's comments. That's a big deal. It's a generational big deal. And we're a community that needs it and ought to be ready for it. We need to be a real player in all this. And our staff is having that kind of conversation about this is the time to get pretty excited about opportunities that only come around once in a while. So great point. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else, David?
No, sir.
All right. Greg?
Not much, Mayor. Just I'm glad to hear you announce that we'll be back in person at the library. I wish it could have been council chambers, but I'll take what we can get. So look forward to seeing everybody.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Greg. Karen?
Just two things. One, do you have a timetable on the Derby estate when you might be able to start working on that?
I think that probably going about it this way, Karen, can be a right away thing.
Great. I'll pass that on. And then the other thing, I had someone came in the shop today and they were talking about the cemetery fence that the school kids are coming through, that the parents are actually driving through the cemetery, letting them out, and then they're cutting through the fence to go over behind the area that's right like across from the veterans, which is parallel with the cemetery, but they're cutting through the fence that they're doing, and then they're circling out, so the kids are cutting through the fence. So I thought, well, maybe that might be something that we need to kind of look at.
Yes, we should.
Okay. And that's it.
Mention the cemetery, Karen, they were able, with the pretty weather, Public Works has really been busy the last few days, and they were able to do the gravel work on the shoulder repairs at the cemetery that we've talked about. They couldn't get blacktop today, but they finished the shouldering with the gravel and are going to get the blacktop tomorrow. So there's some, the Public Works is really catching up where they can.
Well, great. I'll go up there at the end of the week and take a look at it. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Tammy?
All good, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Connie?
I'm good too, Mayor. Good to know that we're going to meet back in person. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Willow, we save the best for last.
Perfect. I hope so. I know Tammy and you and Devin and Andrew have been participating in the Undivided racial equity meetings. Maybe somebody else here too, I might have forgotten, but I think it's been very helpful, and hopefully going forward, more people will be exposed to that training. I think it's been quite beneficial. The other thing is I'm looking forward to the KLC training tomorrow, since we have home insecure people, and that is increasing by the month. So hopefully we can get some ideas from them. And then I just would like to express support for the staff and the students and the faculty at Georgetown College. They've had a very rough week. The college is an extremely important part of the citizenry of Georgetown. And I know all of us wish them the very best going forward.
Yeah, that's point very well taken, Willow. Thank you for expressing that. Well, folks, great meeting, a lot of information. And if there's nothing else to come before the council, we will stand adjourned.